For as long as there's been kids, there have been toys. Some even date back to 1000 BCE. But not all toys were created equal, and many didn't stand the test of time. In this video, we'll look at some of the toys we miss and want back.
Hit clips, micro music system. You can collect them all, each sold separately.
Hit clips. Every youngster from the 90s still loves hit clips, even if the toy didn't stay for that long. Mini stereos, called hit clips, playing 60-second snippets of music stored on small cartridges that looked like memory cards, were every kid's dream during that time. From 1999 until 2004, having a large number of hit clips attached to your keychain or bag was the epitome of coolness. However, even the best things must come to an end. After the introduction of the iPod and other portable music players, hit clips fell by the wayside. But who knows? Even though everyone thought vinyl was dead, Urban Outfitters still sells record players. No matter how cool hit clips were, they weren't the first portable music player. That honor went to the 80s kids.
Pocket rockers, tiny tapes, tiny players.
The pocket rockers were the rage among kids in the 1980s. Instead of digital hit clips, you could think of pocket rockers as a little 8-track that you could carry around with you. And unlike hit clips, which only included a 60-second clip, tapes had 2 complete songs. It doesn't get any cooler than that. There was a toggle on the player that let you go to the next track as soon as the previous one concluded. Each player had an integrated speaker and a place to plug in headphones. There were also accessories available, like tape storage systems and external speakers. Despite being released from 1988 to 1991, Fisher-Price missed the boat on the pocket music fad with pocket rockers. Skip-Its were all the rage in the 80s and 90s, as it was one of the few toys that actually got youngsters moving. In the era of the most sold toy being the iPad, I think there's a place for these. I mean, using a Skip-It was a breeze. You'd have to hop over the loop every time it passed your leg, or risk tripping and falling, or getting hit by it as it swung around your feet in loops after you slipped it onto one ankle. A counter was included in later versions so that you could track your progress. Released in the 1980s, Skip-Its became a phenomenon in the 1990s, thanks to a redesign in Nickelodeon ads. They sparked intense rivalries and got kids moving. To be honest, the original Skip-Its are next to impossible to come by. While there are several knockoffs, the only genuine Skip-Its available today have been transformed into the Twister Rave Skip-It game. The addition of too many features have diminished the simplicity of this toy's initial appeal.
Talkboy tape recorder.
Stop drooling on me! Stop drooling on me!
In Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, Kevin uses a fake toy called the Talk Boy. Back then, it was just a props with no plans for releasing it. But after the film, demand for the toy blew up, and a toy company decided to actually make a real version of it. That's enough to tell you how cool it was. If you've seen Home Alone 2, you might have noticed that Kevin uses his Talk Boy to record his voice and alter it, so he sounds more grown up. Pretty cool, huh? Unfortunately, director John Hughes merely conjured it up as a prop to aid Kevin's scheme. Nevertheless, Tiger Electronics launched a genuine Talk Boy in 1993, following a fan mail-in campaign, and it became one of the most talked about Black Friday toys that year. More portable toys that didn't require cassette tapes would replace this method of recording over the ensuing decade. For as little as $10, you can get Talk Boys on eBay. Smartphones have made it possible to perform nearly everything a Talk Boy could do, but you still won't be nearly as cool as owning a Talk Boy.
When you build with Erector, you've got the tools.
While many have tried to cash in on the original Erector sets, the originals were unfortunately pulled from sale. The Erector sets were incredibly popular, despite being super simplistic. Or maybe that's what made them so cool. In 1913, they were merely kits of metal beams in different sizes, along with nuts and bolts that children could use to construct anything they wanted. Exhilaratingly, the options seemed limitless. But as time went on, Erector sets became increasingly intricate, even eventually featuring working Ferris wheels, power plants, and trains. The Erector sets, which were made of metal, were eventually discontinued because plastic toys got more and more popular, Their 1998 induction into the National Toy Hall of Fame ensues that their legacy will endure nonetheless. One of Erector's early rivals, Meccano, purchased the firm in the 2000s and now offers a similar product. But it's just not quite the Erector set.
No found puppies before. Are they new? Yes, and they're so lonely.
Before the age of Beanie Babies, Pound Puppies held the crown of the most beloved plush toys. The well-known toy manufacturer Tonka sold the puppies, which Mike Boldings created in 1984. Their ability to evoke strong emotions was likely a major factor in their widespread acclaim. Youngsters couldn't help but notice the cardboard doghouse with its sorrowful face and hangdog eyes. But just as any other golden age declined, the era of Pound Puppies also declined. And in 1998, they were no longer sold in stores after the popularity drastically decreased. However, the animated TV show Pound Puppies brought them back into the spotlight in 2010. But alas, the show ceased airing in 2013, and the goods withdrew at the same time. Staying on the topic of puppies, there was another toy that took the world by storm.
Sit. Good dog. I'm only Super Poochie.
Lay down, please lay down.
Among the first robo-pets to capture our hearts in the new century, Poochies were real OGs. For children whose parents forbade them from having a real pet, Poochies were the ideal present. Your voice could be recognized, pranks could be performed, and it could even communicate with other Poochies. But what made it a truly remarkable pet was the fact that it had a distinct personality that changed with each training session and required regular feeding. Even in the 21st century, it was monumental. However, fur real friends, which were plush and cuddly and can do all of the aforementioned, led to the 2002 discontinuation of Poochies. Nonetheless, we would be open to Poochies returning. Their computerized eyes and bubblegum pink ears are adorable and throwback. Since we're talking about tech toys, not mentioning Speak and Spell would be an injustice.
She's teaching her brother with Speak and Spell.
The famous calculator manufacturer Texas Instruments created the Speak and Spell to aid children in their spelling development. This toy wasn't like any other. It was an indispensable tool for elementary school students learning to spell when it was first released in 1978. The basic idea is that it would pronounce words aloud, and then the students would have to memorize and pronounce them in order to spell them. The toy got so popular that movies like Toy Story and E.T. featured it. But in the 1990s, production of Speak and Spells ceased. Nowadays, children have access to several apps that serve a similar purpose, albeit without the peculiarly charming robotic voice.
Mommy, look what I taught my little Miss Echo.
Your Little Miss Echo doll could mimic your every word. The name pretty much says it all. Little Miss Echo dolls could capture your voice and play it back to you. At 13 inches in height, Echo dolls were noticeably larger than the average doll. For comparison, the average height of a Barbie is 11.5 inches. Echo dolls were manufactured from 1962 to 1963 and sold until 1965, according to Vintage Doll Repair. These are so dated compared to modern dolls, but we still can't get enough of the nostalgia they invoke.
The world of the Micronauts, a Croyer, the enemy, and the Micronaut Space Warrior.
Remember those Micronauts from the 70s and 80s? They could be back real soon. Micronauts were fascinating action figurines with a history similar to that of Transformers. An ongoing conflict between the good Micronauts and the bad Acro years is formed in a Marvel comic book plot. The Micronauts are invisible to the human eye. Mego produced a widely famous toy from 1976 to 1980. And when the company regrettably went bankrupt, the Micronauts went down with it. Fortunately, there is good news for Micronauts aficionados. Hasbro and Paramount will release a Micronauts film really soon, if they can stop canceling it again and again. And if the movie does get released, perhaps it will prompt the development of a brand new iteration of the toy. Let's just hope it's as good as the old ones.
Sky dancers, and they really light up. Light for me, light up for me.
The Sky Dancers were among the most wanted toys for 6 whole years, before they became the least wanted. The first Sky Dancers appeared in 1994 and were plastic dolls on bases. The Sky Dancer dolls could spin and soar when the kids pulled a string on the base. But there was more to these dolls than meets the eye. Before recalling them, Galoob, the manufacturer, received 170 complaints. CNN Money said that the injuries involved eye injuries, scratched corneas, and incidents of temporary blindness, broken teeth, a mild concussion, a broken rib, and facial lacerations that required stitches. Even though they were discontinued in the year 2000, I still really enjoyed seeing the Sky Dancers soar through the air. So if they can fix their hazard concerns, this is definitely a toy we need back.
Please brush my hair. Okay, Daddy.
Chatty Cathy is a term that originated with the cherished 1960s doll of the same name. And she really lived up to her name, since the doll could utter one of 11 pre-programmed words in response to a tug of a string. For 1959, this technology was revolutionary. Looking back, it's possible that Chatty Cathy was a little unsettling. Actually, the real Chatty Cathy, June Foray, did the voice acting for a doll named Talkie Tina in an episode of The Twilight Zone called Living Doll, which was loosely based on Cathy. Maybe this eerie feeling was the reason Cathy stopped being produced in 1966. There are many children who loved and mourned their Chatty Cathy dolls from the 60s, even though Cathy might be kind of scary now. She was incredibly inventive back then. Tossed into the air and hoping to land in a plastic ring on another section of the lawn, jarts, or lawn darts, were a tragedy waiting to happen. But you can't deny that it was an enjoyable family outing, filled with healthy rivalry, fun in the fresh air, and good old-fashioned group play. However, jarts were a serious threat to public safety. There were reports of accidents, injuries, and even fatalities caused by these darts with metal tips. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission prohibited lawn darts in 1988 due to the risk they posed. 3 deaths and over 6,000 injuries occurred in the 70s and 80s as a result of these darts. If you've never had the pleasure, it's likely because of that. However, players continued to play, and the ban was reissued in 1997. But those who played it in their backyards still have fond memories of it. So if a company can perfect jarts, it can once again be a fun way for the family to spend some time together.
So well, if you take us home, we'll kiss your Aunt Martha.
The Boglin is one of the toys that could be considered the grossest toy ever. And that grossness was, of course, what the youngsters adored. Monster Puppets by Mattel, originating from a swampy bog that time forgot, were constructed from latex and packaged in what appeared to be a wooden crate. The front of the box had a removable plastic grate. They were available for purchase in 1987, but were removed from sale 2 years later. But people still want that toy back. One guy even said that they should release a version with an exposed mind and call it Mind-Boggling. Now that's an idea.
She got real cool clothes. Lots of clothes. She got real cool hair. I love her hair.
The 1998 doll Betty Spaghetti was quite awesome, even though she butchered the Italian language. Her hair was like rubber, and her hands and feet could change shape at will. Hannah and Zoe, Betty's equally pliable and rubbery best friends, Dakota, her cherished horse, and Allie, her younger sister, were all with her. Additional figurines, books, and an album were added to the Betty Spaghetti line in the following years. Betty Spaghetti experienced some ups and downs before the Australian company Moose Toys revived her in 2016. The original dolls were wild and spaghetti-like, but the new ones just don't compare. It's a classic example of don't fix something that doesn't need fixing.
Looking vehicles and ordinary men become an awesome fighting team.
In 1985, Kenner debuted The Mask, Mobile Armored Strike Command toy line, which featured ordinary vehicles that could change into other sorts of vehicles or expose concealed armor and weaponry. Something like Transformers, but different. Each vehicle came with a 2-inch figure. So basically, they were Transformers, but with significantly smaller humans. There have been whispers for a while now that Mask could possibly be getting a reboot. but fans have yet to hear anything definitive.
People got big imaginations, little...
In the 1970s, the iconic children's television program Sesame Street teamed up with the immensely popular Fisher-Price Little People to bring us the Sesame Street Little People toy set. It was basically small figurines with cylindrical bodies manufactured to fit into special houses and vehicles. For example, a school bus that has circular holes for seating instead of regular seats. With beloved characters like Bert, Ernie, Oscar the Grouch, and more, 2 sets called Sesame Street Apartments and Sesame Street Clubhouse were offered. Even though they were limited edition, I don't doubt that they would still sell like hotcakes among today's Sesame Street fans.
It's cool. Smile. Hot new style.
The Gotta Dance Girls dolls may have not been commercially successful, but who could resist a doll with defiant dancing abilities? Well, almost. Using their best pop, dance, Latin, and hip-hop skills, the 4 IR-controlled dolls in the range, a blonde, a brunette, a redhead, and an African-American, dance to 3 one-minute tracks. When you've had enough of their flashy dancing, you have the option to use freeze mode to stop them and strike a pose. Now that's cool.
An alien.
No kidding. Where?
It's living in America.
I like what they've done with the place.
The NBC sitcom of the same name featured the affable and sarcastic alien Alf from 1986 to 1990. Toys were released in 1986 as part of a merchandising line to cash in on the success of the show. If you wanted Alf, an acronym for alien lifeform, in your own house, you could get the big plush doll. And during his prime, you could say that Alf was omnipresent. The plush was basically everywhere. Not to mention, for those who could tolerate sarcasm, there was a talking version as well. It's one of those toys that would still be good even today. Keep the nostalgia alive and keep watching our videos. Which one of these toys do you miss the most?